Hey everyone, it's Blue Lizard Jello, and welcome back to Blue Plays Ashen. You can see I am here in the seat of the Matriarch. Action is starting right away, and that is because, well, a couple of things. Number one, this is post-commentary for the second episode in a row. Not something that I intended, and not something that I was hoping to happen, but unfortunately at the time of recording there was so much construction going on in my apartment building that doing live commentary simply was not feasible. The other reason is that as I was going back through the seat of the Matriarch in order to get back to where I died in the last episode, I was joined by an actual human companion, and I wanted to take advantage of that help as much as I could, so I couldn't simply, well, you know, do my standard opening and take it nice and slow. So here we are, back in the seat of the Matriarch. We are just about where we were at the very end of the last episode, but a couple of things have changed, and I will show off my inventory here in just a little bit. But not only did I come through already to claim my lost scoria, but I also used that scoria and anything I had saved up. I went back to Vagrant's Rest, and I upgraded my two weapons, so they are now both Ash infused +1. Here I am drinking the sap so I can refill my Crimson Gourd. I am being a little bit more conscious about my healing, and here I am showing off the two weapons that I am using. And I did switch over to the Disciple Vestments just so you can see what I'm currently using. Still using the wings. Not really sure if it's my cup of tea. Still missing Ukoto's Guile, but there is another relic we'll be getting that may be taking its place for quite some time. The Seat of the Matriarch, this ended up being a pretty long dungeon, although, spoiler alert, I do get it done in this episode. I was pretty pleased with how I went about it. But what I was saying about healing was, notice that last time and even this time, I came in with a full complement of both the white sapotes and the mushrooms, and I was using them instead of using my gourd. But that was only until I realized that there are a number of spots here in this dungeon that allow you to refill your Crimson Gourd. So I was concerned that I would only get these 6 and no more for the entirety of the dungeon, so I was being very stingy with them. But now that I realized that I can just drink a few times during the dungeon to refill it, I started using them a bit more judiciously. Responding to a few comments, it seems that I am still a bit confused as to how to differentiate between an actual player joining my game and just a standard NPC. I was under the impression that if they were using something other than standard NPC fare, such as this individual using Ukoto's Guile, I was under the impression that this meant they were a human player. But it turns out that, at least according to some of you, even the NPCs can use different relics. So, I'm not really sure when I'm playing with a player and when I'm playing with an NPC. This, I do believe, is a player, and I'll give you some reasons why in just a little bit. This gauntlet right here was one of the more difficult sections in the entire dungeon for me. Fortunately, if you saw once I climbed the stairs and I turned around, there is a basin where I can refill my sap. So what I plan on doing was not using that until I was done with this section, and then I can refill it once and for all. You can see there, nearly died because there are a number of these very large enemies, but there's also some skeletons which I can handle pretty easily, and then there's also these crawling enemies like this one coming at me right now. These enemies prove to be a lot more dangerous than just about any others because their attacks come very quickly, they can do a lot of damage, and because of their low profile when they're crawling, several of my hits would actually just go over their heads and I would miss entirely. So my goal here is to just clear one platform at a time, knowing full well that these little crawlers are going to be coming at me. There I am using my heavy attack because with this axe I do like this move for low enemies because it allows me to almost drag the axe along the ground and hit them that way. There's some more sapient moss. We do get a lot of sapient moss. I think I end this dungeon with 8 of them if I'm not mistaken. Also, per your comments and trying to think a little bit more intelligently about my battles, I am starting to use the spears more so I can pull enemies and kill some of them from a distance. Now this is where I think my human player decided he was done, or maybe this is him logging out. But you can see he just kind of sat down, and now I don't have a companion. In fact, excuse me, I'm not going to have a companion for some time. It is just me against the world, and a very scary world that is. Here I am searching for Jokell or my friend, but they are nowhere to be found. Not really sure what happened. If you have any idea, love to hear what just happened. I am racking up quite a bit of scoria, which is going to be very, very helpful. I do want to try out different weapons, but the problem is it is so prohibitively expensive to level up. The resources to level up are really not that difficult to come across, but the scoria costs are just monumental. Trying to bait the dash attack if I can. You see I just missed there. Ooh, health is low. That's alright. I do have that sap basin that I'll be able to use. Even more sapient moss. The only problem that I found with the dungeon, well, okay, several problems I found with this dungeon, but one of the biggest is that it is so dark and there's so many areas that are poorly lit. I had to have my lantern out at all times. Now, yes, I could put it down and then switch to my two-handed for more damage, but the problem is that takes time. And if I'm doing that for every battle, I have just added who knows how much longer to this already long dungeon. Now, maybe I should withhold judgment until further on in the game, but unless they have some other passive way of generating light, like some sort of spell or maybe a helmet that generates light, then the lantern is not exactly the end-all be-all that I wish it would be. Or maybe if I could get a smaller version that I could hang on my belt. I know I'm really just describing concepts from the Soulsborne games because I just described Cast Light, I described the Sunlight Maggot, I described the Hand Lantern from Bloodborne. But while I really like the idea that I can put the lantern down, I feel that if I have to do so in order to see my enemies every single time, I'm just adding an unnecessary mechanic. Also, I need to know, when do I get a magic attack like these enemies have? Starting to understand the combat a little bit better, and even though it may come off as spamming, those R1 attacks with this axe do a great job at stun locking even some of the bigger enemies. And I don't even have that one talisman that gives me the extra stun when I'm holding the lantern. It is nearly time to go use that sap basin because I am running very low on gourds, and I have a number of enemies left yet. That was my last gourd. Health is getting low. Time to deal with some of these enemies if I can. Resorting to the Sapote. And he actually just ran off. Not a bad time for me to head back and drink from that basin, but, well, post-commentary blue is a little bit more intelligent than live gameplay blue, it seems. Although he doesn't have too much health left. I do start to handle these enemies a bit more effectively later on, I do promise you that. There we go. Got all my gourds back and nearly full health. I wonder if it actually refills my health only as much as a single gourd use would do. That would be my guess. It seems to be pretty accurate from what I just saw. Here I am actually scouring the walls to see if any of those crawlers are hanging on. Starting to think a little bit. And even though you can't see what I just did, I actually just tapped my left temple with my hand as if to say, I'm thinking large scoria stash. Very, very welcome. 10,000 scoria. Far too much damage from that one enemy. Time to use one of my speckled mushrooms. I use these quite a bit. I do like the passive healing over time. Trying to follow some of these lampposts because it does seem that is directing me ever forward. And if there are no lanterns, then it seems that I'm either going off track completely or I'm heading into more of a secret area, which I do find a few in this episode, although I will tell you right now, I know full well that there are items that I leave because I could see them, I wasn't sure exactly how to get to them, and I didn't feel like backtracking too much after this really long sprawling dungeon. I don't know if you noticed, well, goodbye. I don't know if you noticed, but one of those enemies seemed to have appeared through the wall itself. I have been noticing a little bit of clipping when in the dungeons. Fortunately, I did notice a couple of items that I missed, so there's a sapient moss. Just checking around a little bit, see if I missed any others, but I know that there's at least one more immediately to the right at the top of these stairs. Alright, at least he's running off, making sure I'm not being followed. There is a Craven Remnant. Always like to see those, even though I haven't been using them too often, now that I know just how prolific the traveling ritual stones are. If only I could sell. Speaking of selling, it's not really selling, but I had mentioned that the small scoria stashes, which are worth 250, can now be purchased from the traders for 300 scoria. And I had theorized that maybe later on there would be an item that I have to trade small scoria stashes for, and a couple of you pointed out that really what that is allowing me to bank my scoria at a small net loss. So if I have 300 scoria, I can buy one of the small scoria stashes, which would mean that I don't lose 250 scoria if I were to die. And I can understand that. I can even appreciate that. Although having to buy them in such small increments could be a little bit tedious. I wonder if I get the medium and large eventually. That would be nice. Gonna put down my lantern here, get my spears out, see what I can do to attract one of these enemies' attention. And even though I missed and just wasted 2 spears, make that 3 spears. It does seem like he is making his way towards me, even though I don't know exactly how he's going to get to me. Although it certainly sounds like he's found me. And there he is. Even though I can't even see what I'm doing, I knew that I was at least facing his general direction, so I could just take him out with a few swings. I do still love the look of the wings, although I haven't seen them grow to full, so I'm still not sure about that mechanic. If anyone wants to share how the wings either get repaired or grow, do let me know in the comments. Aha! I saw that enemy. Didn't let him get the jump on me. That's probably a first, but still something to be celebrated. So here's one of those such sections where the lanterns tell me to go right, and darkness is straight ahead of me, but it feels like anything that they might be hiding is going to be where the light is not. I need to carefully take care of this enemy because I am in a very tight corridor. And, yep, I didn't realize that was going to be a 3-hit combo. Almost got taken out by his magic. But there we are, and not too bad. I'm getting over 500 scoria per kill with them, thanks to these wings. Decision has been made, going to check out what I consider to be maybe a secret section. Even though it does require a bit of a leap of faith here. I'm not sure how to feel about this music. On the one hand, it does fit the motif of the dungeon, just kind of ominous, foreboding, a little bit discordant, if that's even a word. I'm not really all that musical. But at the same time, it's very repetitive. Hushed Remains. I've seen that a few times, and there we go. There is a black feather for an extra +2 to my max health. They do add up, so even though it is minimal per feather, certainly seems worth hunting them all out. Alright, making that jump back. Now I get to go back to following the lanterns. At least until I find the next branching path. there also seem to be a number of places that I could go off in one direction or another, but I couldn't see any items off in the distance, so I'm not really sure what the end game was. Or maybe it really is just to show that this place is really, really massive. Here I am just trying to cut all the corners here so I can see what might be hiding. Got one of these Shadow Warriors here. Don't get grabbed. Oh, time to just spam. Alright, Shadow Warrior dead. This guy is almost done for. Really would be nice to have my NPC back. Another Shadow Warrior. Tell you what, let's drop our lantern. Get our spear out, at least get some damage before they can even get close to me. And actually the spears do some good damage, as long as they're the time-worn spears. The other spears do considerably less according to their damage numbers. Glad I looked around this corner. If not, I could easily have been pounced, but instead I was able to get the drop on the Shadow Warrior. And I would have been able to take this enemy out very quickly, but I ran out of stamina. Ah! And here we are. Here is my NPC back. I did that to see if this was a human or not, because they are using Okoto's Guile, but I'm thinking this is just an AI controlled. Is there any other indication? Is there any mark that I'm just not seeing up on their hotbar? Frankly, I don't know. I wish there was a way. I've mentioned that before, but I wish there was some indication that would tell me very clearly whether I was playing with AI or another player. Speckled mushroom dropping from that crawling enemy. They can actually drop a number of items. I have seen speckled mushrooms, I've seen green crickets, I've also even seen sapien moss be dropped, I think by the skeletons, not by them necessarily. I am glad that I got my NPC companion back here, though, because this next section... Oof. Craven Remnant off of the Shadow Warrior. This next area, bit of a secret area, or at least an optional area, this gets dangerous. This gets very, very dangerous. Small space, tight corridors, a number of enemies. And you can see that Jokell does not last very long. But I can't simply rush in there because I would have gone down just as quickly. So with only 3 gourds remaining, my health just about gone, it is time to start baiting some of these back where I can manage them in a more open arena. Of course, if you run too far too quickly, that's when their leash is tugged and they have to go back to their starting position. So I shouldn't have run that far, although now that I'm topped off, I have a little bit more freedom. Big guy standing right in the corridor, though. Seems he might actually be stuck temporarily. This enemy's almost dead. The problem is there's one right behind him. And he's about, well, a little bit more than half. Alright, got one down. Two down. There's at least one more of the crawling enemies, and then I have the giant guy left. Are the giants considered listeners? I'm trying to learn the names of the different enemies, but because you only get them whenever you pick up one of their weapons, I'm having a hard time keeping them straight. So if these are listeners, let me know. I am down to my last gourd, and just one more good hit, I would have been dead. So now I have to rely on my mushrooms and my sapotes until I can find either a ritual stone or one of the sap basins. I lost a lot of health trying to get back to Jokell. Fortunately, I was able to actually sneak in and pick him up. And now let's see what we have. So there's still one of the crawling enemies left. See if we can take care of the big guy, who for now I will call Listener. There we are. And the crawler. One more hit's gonna do it, and Jokell takes care of him. Perfect. So we get a sapient moss and a small scoria stash, because the big guy dropped an item and there was the corpse, and then I get a large scoria stash. So I don't know. Was this area worth it? I mean, it is 10,000 scoria, which is quite a lot. But I also lost a lot of health and risked dying and having to run back all the way through the seat of the Matriarch. So, bit of a catch-22 there. Yet another speckled mushroom. They drop them pretty frequently, I've found. Noticing that big guy up on the ledge, thought I'd be smart and get my spear out. So I throw one, thinking I'll get his attention, he'll drop down, then we can just tag team him very quickly. He then very, very easily dodges the second one. So I think, alright, I'll just have to get close, let him drop down, and then we'll take care of him. You can see it did about a third of his health. Not too bad, but he doesn't seem interested in dropping down. I'm thinking if I just push forward, though, he's going to drop down behind us. Definitely not what I need. Problem is, I would have to do an assisted climb to get up to him, and I'm thinking that as soon as I hoist Jokell up there, he's going to get destroyed by that enemy, and then I'm left again with that NPC companion. So instead, if he just wants to stand still, then I'll waste a few spears. Which maybe, in hindsight, that is a bit wasteful. It was safe, but those spears are expensive. It costs 3 spearheads and I believe 1,500 scoria a piece. Well, I guess for each set, you get a set of 9 every time you trade it over at Amiran. Okay, a couple more crawling enemies. It does look like I'm getting pretty low in the dungeon, though. Even another one. These are just absolutely everywhere. Have to look around, see what I'm missing. Again, I know that I don't get every single item, but I want to get as many as are easily accessible at the very least. I noticed I could drop down here, but I don't know if that's a shortcut, if that's intended, or what else I could be missing if I drop down. Still just looking around, making sure I'm not missing anything. Then I got turned around and finally realized that's where I came from. I do have the one item up here. I do see the crawler off to the right, though. Another Craven Remnant. You know, I used to think those are so valuable because they cost so much in the trading stores, but frankly, I've only used a handful. I was going to wait to bait that dash attack, but Jokell just took it all on the chin for me. Trying to debate which way I should go. Although it kind of looks like that might be the floor of the dungeon, so I'm getting really close, and I'm assuming I'll have a boss battle at the end of this. At least I was hoping. Otherwise, this whole dungeon would have been, I wouldn't say pointless. Okay, no, I'll say it. It would have been pointless. This dungeon was massive, and I can only imagine they probably get longer and more difficult as the game goes on. Once again realizing that that's where I came from. Actually, I don't think that is where I came from, is it? Oh, now I don't even know. I might have to go back here to explore. I really don't want to, if I'm being honest. Ooh, looks like that is where I'm headed. So I'm getting very close finally. Wouldn't be the worst thing in the world to get one of those sap basins, though. Yet another sapient moss. It's one of those ominous-looking red statues. I wasn't sure if I could drop down there. It looked like there was a floor, but it also could have been just a foggy drop trying to conceal a kill box. So I wasn't willing to go down that way. But I noticed I have a trader right here. Seeing if they had anything unique, doesn't appear so. But I can definitely top off on my sapotes at the very least. Couldn't hurt. And that's when I actually realized, of course after wasting a sapote, there's a ritual stone. Which tells me a couple things. Number one, they want me to survive, and also I'm probably coming up against a boss any second now. So there we are, health refilled, gourds refilled, and now I'm just in this really massive, what I imagine is the final area. And I really liked how those plants, or those anemones, actually followed me around. I think that was a pretty cool touch. So I did a little bit of running around here, not too much, because frankly I didn't see anything out there. I didn't see any items, didn't see any enemies. And it seemed like the lights at this point were just guiding me straight forward. So at this point, that's my goal. I'm just going to push on straight ahead unless I see anything off in the distance. Number of these crawling enemies. Fortunately, like I said, I am learning to deal with them a little bit better. Also, you all told me that the NPCs, they can go down once, and then you revive them, and if they go down again, they die. And I'm assuming that because I touched that ritual stone, because I got close enough, it refilled that one down that he was allowed. Otherwise, he would have been dead. I also decided, if that is the case, might as well go back, top off my health, and refill his one down chance. Another speckled mushroom. Still just doing a tiny bit of exploring to see if there's anything out there, and there probably is. I bet there's a sapient moss or two hidden somewhere out there. But at this point, I've been down in the seat of the Matriarch for so long, I really couldn't be bothered. Although I just saw that one light off in the distance, I wouldn't be surprised if there's an item hidden over there. And it doesn't seem like there's too much more in between me and that very large door. And for some reason, this one enemy decided to use his magic when we were nowhere near him. And that's when it hit me. He is like Amiran. He is actually summoning skeletons every time he does that. So it's time to deal with him before we focus on any of those smaller adds. As a matter of fact, they all died as soon as he did. Watch these ash-covered enemies, though. They do a surprising amount of damage for as weak as they are. I can see two more enemies, and then it seems like we are free to go to that large door, where we can supposedly confront Amiren, Bataran's sister. Not wanting to run all the way back, but not wanting to use a gourd either, I figure speckled mushroom should get me nearly full, if not all the way. And I thought maybe these were buttons I had to interact with, but nope, turns out I can just open this incredibly large stone door all on my own. And I see someone off in the distance. Could it be that we're finally about to confront Amiren? So let's talk about this fight as you watch me go through it. This fight, it was fun. I did enjoy this fight, even though it seemed very basic. She didn't have too many moves that I had to worry about. She did have this pretty cool attack where she could actually cause these runes to appear on the floor and they would do damage over time. But given the state of the dungeon and how long it was and how difficult it was at times, I don't know if they were trying to offer me a bit of reprieve, but I did not find Amiren to be much of a challenge. You can see there that very, very large attack leaves a lot of this damaging aura on the floor. Jokell apparently didn't notice like I did. Now, I did also notice, though, that she has a health bar that doesn't seem to be moving very quickly, but the skull lantern that she's using actually has a separate one. So I did decide to try and focus on the skull to see what would happen. Trying to allow her to get some of those stomps in before I rush in. Skull's about halfway dead. But as soon as she drops it, that's time to back up. Tried to look down in that grate, see what was down there. Just a lot of glowing. Jokell just took another big hit and still runs in, even though there's that damaging aura all over the floor. I didn't like that she was so close to the edge here. So I've done almost no damage to her. But the skull is almost dead. Whatever that means. Alright, so it looks like the skull has now broken. And I'm thinking that maybe held some sort of power over her. Because now that I broke it, now I can actually do damage, it seems. Her health was going down very, very slowly up until now, and now she's just going down very quickly. So it may be possible to defeat her without destroying the skull. The one thing I didn't check, though, was could I destroy the skull again, and what would happen if I did? Staying out of the reach of those large, large sweeps. She is going down so very quickly. Watch those stomps, though, because they will do a lot of damage, I found. And frankly, that was the fight. I actually thought this was going to be a phase 2. But no, it turns out that's the full Amiren fight. This is when I also thought there would be another boss battle. But nope, turns out that's just an NPC that I can go interact with. Amiren has been defeated. I get the Listener Heart of Silverius artifact, Geffin's Blessing, and the Runic Bulwark, which is a shield. In fact, I do take a look at those items now. Made from ashen bone, this powerful shield is reinforced with leather and fossilized. I do like the look of it at the very least. When Geffen brought humanity into this world, the listeners welcomed them. Together, the two people made the twin hearts of Silverius, and the Mother of the Deep joined them as a symbol of unity between listener and human. But let's see who this stranger is.
I am Amiren, sister to this matriarch, yet neither friend nor ally. I knew this day would come for Amiren. Heartless as it sounds, I wish it had come sooner. Butteran sent you? Then I would be honored to join you at this vagrant's rest of yours. Before that, I shall reward you for freeing me from my sister's grim fears. Now that I am free, I can use these pathways, and I can help you do the same. But first, I need an artifact. The cunning pestle. The pestle was stolen away by a pair of cowards during your battle with Amiren. Twin deviants named Tuma and Suma. You'll find their crumbling stronghold above the Whispers. Kindly fetch the pestle for me while I follow the shadows back to Vagrant's Rest. Now, would you like to see
Absolutely, I do not want to run back. So we've just met Silverius, one of Matriarch's other sisters. We had to kill Amiren, but we located Silverius, and now we have another quest from her. Fun fact, I did not realize that pestle was actually pronounced pestle. I always thought that the word was pestle, like pestle and mortar, but no, it turns out it is pestle. Matriarch, what do you have to say?
Of regaining Silverius. Yes, Silverius has suffered at Amiren's hand. That much is terribly clear. It will be some time before she is her old self again. I will do what I can to help. Now, please, take the listener heart to Amara. She will know what to do with it.
12 max stamina, a new talisman, and apple cricket trading. I haven't been using those too often, but frankly, they're pretty valuable with their stamina regeneration. By the way, I called the wrong NPC Amara. This lovely lady here playing the harp, this is Amara.
You have the listener heart as well, I see. Give it to me, so I can continue the search. The twin hearts are linked, so I should be able to follow the thread connecting them. But I cannot cut through the shadows that lie behind the hillside. It is a knot so tangled, so intricate, it might as well be Cisna's own web. My people shunned Cisna's work, the spinning of deceits and shadows. Instead, we watched from afar, unraveling her dark ways with eye and mind. Our observations were inscribed on tablets and locked away within the halls of Cliffa. To pierce Cisna's tangle, we must venture to those fallen halls and find the archive tablet.
New journey active, guiding light. Right, so we do have another step in the main quest, and it seems like another side quest, but I do want to take a look at this new talisman we just got. We have Robust. Now, Veiled, I didn't show this off the last time, but we got this during one of the last side quests, but your armor stamina penalties are reduced by 25%. Not too bad, considering some of the best armors do have about a 25% stamina penalty, so that would essentially negate that. Now, this is interesting. Geffin's Blessing. Your damage resistance to a single hit builds up over time. At 15 seconds, it's 15%. At 18 seconds, it's 40%. And then at 23 seconds, it's 100%. A single hit would be reduced by 100%. So, of course, I had to try it out. And as I'm walking very slowly through the ever-growing Vagrant's Rest, I noticed that, sadly, this relic doesn't show anything like the wings do, except they do. It actually took me a moment there to realize what had just happened, but you see I have these horns growing off the top of my head, and now there's even butterflies flittering about. So I thought, what if I stand around a little bit longer, considering it does say that it takes place over time. There apparently is stage 2, and just because I wanted to cut a little bit out, there is stage 3. So at stage 3, the first hit I take would be negated 100%. I think that is going to be an incredibly valuable gift. But that is going to do it for this episode of Blue Plays Ashen. Hope you're all still enjoying. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.